Good night. How everyone doing tonight? God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma, just Spirit Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight. And the topic gonna be which of Endor. This dealing with Saul. He gonna turn to me because he wants to get in touch with Sam. And God forbid witchcraft. He forbid witchcraft, but he that desperate to get in touch with someone. So this story about Saul, who need guidance from God, but God's spirit then depart from Saul. Now he praying and God is quiet. So Saul turns to a witch of Endor, is a woman who was summoned the spirit of the prophet Samuel. Now Saul wished to receive advice on defeating the Philistine in battle, but after multiple attempts to consult God, but failed. So the story is going to come from 1 Samuel 28, verse 3 to 25. So now the Philistines gathered their forces to fight against the Israel. So now Saul is getting scared. He fight, because normally when he fight the Philistine, he have God's spirit on him and he win every time. But since God's spirit depart from him, he's scared to fight against the Philistine, because his power is gone, you know. So now this is the time when Samuel had died. And so it's like Saul don't have no one. He don't have no one to turn to. He always used to pray to God. He had a connection with God, and God used to consult with him and through his dream. Now he don't have none of that no more. So he gonna be so desperate to he gonna want to pull up someone that's dead. So now Samuel is dead, but Saul had expelled the Midian and spirit from the land. Now he claiming that he getting rid of Midian in the spirit. He getting rid of all that in the land, cause he know God forbid all that. But then as he walk off, he gonna be so desperate to try to get in touch with somebody because God is not responding to him. So now Saul is afraid, he terrified, he feared his heart. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him, either by dreams. They should communicate like that. So Saul said to his attendant, find him a woman who is a medium, so I may go and inquire of her. So now he's sending his attendant out there to go look for someone that do witchcraft. So now Saul have to fight against the Philistine, and he don't have no one to give him guidance. So he always when he had to fight the Philistine, he had to fight anyone. He had Samuel to talk to, and he had God to talk to. He had either one of them to talk to, but now he all alone. And he done ran David off somewhere. So he by himself trying to figure this out. So Samuel is dead, and God is not responding, and now he looking in the wrong direction. He looking in the wrong direction. He's trying to find somebody that do witchcraft. That's not the way to go. If you don't hear from God, you got to keep on praying until he responds. I mean, don't turn to witchcraft, because God forbid witchcraft. So now Saul had fear as king. And that's the reason why God had removed his spirit away from Saul. He had disobeyed God, and now God was no longer available to him. Now Samuel is dead, and Saul have no one to turn to. He is terrified. He don't know what direction to turn. So now he knows. So now he knows witchcraft was forbidden by the law as detestable to God. He already know that's forbidden. But he wants to do it. He's that desperate. He wants to do it anyway. So God didn't allow communication with the dead. God don't like us to do communication with the dead. God don't like us to do witchcraft. That's why he used to get on the Israelite. And Moses had to go up to do commandment, and Moses come down, they doing witchcraft and doing the worshiping others and all this kind of stuff. God do not like witchcraft and talking to the dead and all that. So God didn't allow communication with the dead. Now you know early on Saul expelled the Midianites and spirit from the land following Samuel's death. You know, so after Samuel death, he took all that stuff and removed it. Now you remove it, but now you want to do it. You know, do witchcraft. You gonna change your mind. So Saul himself now is desperate. You know, he turned to Midian, and because he could no longer hear from God, he could no longer hear God's voice. You know, he had to do something. You know, Samuel did. God not answer him, and he don't know what direction to turn to. You know, so when you can't hear from God and he don't respond, you never perceive witchcraft. You know, God forbid. You know, you just have to keep praying. You know, you have to never stop until God answers. You know, never turn to me. Never turn to witchcraft. You know, he forbid witchcraft. He forbid us talking to the dead. You know, so now Saul attended said, there is one in Endor then that night. So Saul and the two men went to meet her. You know, and Saul told her, because saw a spirit for me. Bring up for me the one I named. You know, so now the woman still don't know anything about Saul. You know, until she sees Samuel. You know, she know Samuel and Saul was real close. So now the woman was alone. You know, and she said Saul had cut off the men and spirit from the land. So this woman was afraid of God. Now she do witchcraft, but at the same time she afraid of God. You know, so now all of a sudden you're afraid of God and you always doing witchcraft, knowing God forbid witchcraft. You know, so Saul swore to her that she would not be punished for this. You know, because she was so scared. She was so scared to do that for Saul. You know, because she know God was gonna punish her. She know that was forbidden from God. What Saul wanted her to do. So Saul said, you will not be punished for this. I just need you to do this, and you will not be punished. You know, so the woman asked, whom shall I bring up for you? And Saul said, bring up Samuel, I mean. He said, bring up Samuel. You know, so this woman knew she was over her head with this. She knew she was over her head with this here. That she was not in control. You know, so as she started doing it, she knows she was not in control. She know God used her activity to clarify, to Saul the position beyond the shadow of doubt. You know, that Saul was not comfortable, but rather was incapacitated for what he heard. You know, so God had got involved. You know, because God saw that Saul was consulting the dead. You know, just because he couldn't hear from God. You know, first you disobeyed God. You know, so God wasn't answering him, so he wanted to turn to witchcraft. You know, so the woman bring up Samuel, and she saw Samuel, and she cried out at the top of her voice. You know, a lot of them liked the Samuel when he was out there. You know, and said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You know, you are Saul." So she didn't know he was Saul. You know, she didn't know anything about Saul, but she knows Samuel. You know, she did not know she was dealing with Saul. She did not know she was dealing with Saul. The woman said, she see a spirit coming up out of the ground. But Saul said, how he look? You know, so she said, an old man wearing a robe is coming up. You know, she said it's an old man. An old man is coming up in a robe. You know, so Saul knew it was Samuel. And Saul bowed down with his face down to the ground. You know, because, you know, he respected Samuel when Samuel was on earth. You know, anytime Saul got out of line, you know, Samuel go talk to Saul to put him back in place, you know. So Samuel said to Saul, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? Now, he gonna call Samuel from the dead. So Samuel said, why you disturb me? You know, why is you bringing me up? You know, so Saul said, is speaking to Samuel, pull up the dead because he's in distress. Now, you pull up the dead because you in distress. So that's a Philistine of fighting against him, and God had turned away from me. Now he no longer answered me, either by prophet or by dream. So God not answer him in no kind of way. Not by the dream, not by prayer. You know, God just got quiet. So he just desperate and had no other choice but to try to pull up Samuel. And Samuel said, "Why you disturbing me?" So Saul said, "So I call on you to tell me what to do." So Saul said, I pulled you up in the day. I need you to tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. I pull you up. So I never heard you pull somebody up from the dead because you in distress, and you want Samuel to tell you what to do. Now, well, Samuel, you gonna tell him, he ain't gonna like it one bit at all. So Samuel said, the Lord had turned away from you and become your enemy. So the Lord had turned the kingdom out of your hands and given it to the one of your neighbor, and that's David. So remember, I had put that out weeks ago. When David finally got in position when Saul had did die. And Saul and David, see, God already know the plan. So God already know the plan. So that's why he got in control of that woman doing their witchcraft. So Samuel to tell Saul that David is in position. God already declared that David's in position. Because when Saul had died the next day, David celebrated. Remember, his wife in the window just laughing at him, but David was dancing because it was a long time coming. He been anointed since he was a boy, and just not got in position after Saul. So Samuel said, one of your neighbors to David, because you did not obey and carry out his God wrath against the Ammonites. God gave him an order he did not carry out. So he was waiting for a long time to give the position to David. So Saul was not comfortable for rather were incapacitated about what he heard. So he was uncomfortable with what Samuel had told him. So Samuel declared that the law will hang you over to both Israel and you to the Philistine, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. And Samuel already did. So if he says Saul gonna be, his son's gonna be with him, that means he gonna be dead the next day. So Saul heard what Samuel had said, and he immediately fell full length on the ground with his face down to the ground, because Samuel had told him those words, and he didn't like the words that Samuel told him. So Saul's strength was gone, and he haven't eaten all day. He haven't eaten all day because he's so busy trying to get Samuel. And Samuel said, "Why you disturbing me?" So now you disturb Samuel, and now you don't like the words. You all shaken up because the words that Samuel told you. So now Saul called Samuel for help. But disturbing, but he got disturbing news. Saul called Samuel for help. So he ain't getting no help. He got disturbing news that shook him up. So him and his sons would die the next day. So he got some shaking news, and he supposed to be getting news to help guide him on fighting the Philistine. So he ain't getting no news on fighting the Philistine. He got disturbing news about you gonna die, you and your son gonna die the next day. And that and Samuel already told him David's already in position. See, God already know what's gonna be going on. He already told Samuel, said David already in position. So David got in position the next day when Samuel had died. So regardless of the means by which the witch of Endor, what she did was wrong. She knew what she did was wrong. She obviously knew that God's commandment against the practice of witchcraft, and that the king was forcing her. So you saying Saul forcing you to do it, but that was going against God's will. So I'm gonna read from Samuel, First Samuel 28:21. When the woman came to Saul and saw that he was greatly shaken, she said, "Look, your maidservant has obeyed you. I took my life in my hands and did what you told me to do." You know, so the woman wanted to give Saul some food. Because you know, after he heard the words, what Samuel said, he was all shaken up. He already was weak and had eaten nothing all day. Because he's so busy trying to pull out Samuel. And he didn't get the news that what he wanted to hear when he pulled out Samuel. You know, he wanted advice on how to fight the Philistine. You know, so now, you didn't get what you wanted to hear. You got disturbing news you is all shaken up. The woman said you are pale, and you need some food to eat. Now the first time he refused the food, so she went and cooked the food anyway and gave it to him and the men, and they went on and ate it, and then they left. He refused the food the first time, so he was shaken up from what he heard from Samuel. Now she fixed the food anyway for Saul and his men, but they did eat and they left. So what Samuel declared to Saul that him and his sons would die the next day. You know, so when the woman was bringing Samuel up, God took in control. God stepped in. So when she was bringing Samuel up, God, she already knew God was taking control. Because God wanted to give Samuel a message to Saul, so he got involved. So one, God's spirit departed from Saul because he disobeyed. Two, Saul had to fight against the Philistine, and he was afraid and he had no guidance. So three, he called out to God, no response. No response to either from his dream. So Saul got a woman, who do witchcraft, who received meanings to speak to the dead, and he wanted her to bring us Samuel, because he was in distress and he wanted advice from Samuel on what to do. So five, he did not like what Samuel said. So he wanted advice. So he didn't get no advice. He got disturbing news that him and his sons would die the next day. Six, and when you need God, Samuel and his son, they did die the next day. So when you need guidance, but in a situation that you're in, and you pray to God for guidance, and God don't answer or respond to you. You pray again, he still don't respond. You just got to keep on praying until he respond. Look how long it took the Israelites. But the thing is, no matter how God don't respond, you cannot turn to witchcraft. You cannot turn to meaning and talking to the dead. That's forbid. God don't like for us to do witchcraft and talking to the dead and all that. We're not supposed to be doing all that stuff. You got so many people is doing witchcraft. But God forbid witchcraft and speaking to the dead. Now he didn't eat no food in all day long because he's so busy trying to pull out Samuel because he wanted advice to fight the Philistine. So he didn't even get no advice. He got disturbing news that had him all shaken up. So he about to pass out and faint. The woman had to cook some food and stuff for him to eat to go on his way. So don't never get that desperate that you got to do witchcraft and get minions to talk to the dead. Sometimes God may take a long time to respond. And if you pray to him, if you would have prayed to him and said the right words, apologize or something, maybe he would have responded. But he disobeyed God, and God was just done. He already put his spirit over on David, and he already had Samuel to say that David, he already turned the kingdom over to David, your neighbor. So that means God already had put David in position, so God write out the plan, so he already know what's going to happen and what's going on, the beginning to the end. You know, and David didn't even know. But God have a plan out. He already told Samuel, say, your neighbor already got the got the king position, and that is David. So he was just shocking. He just heard all kind of discernment. He heard that David about to be king, and he also heard that him and his son's gonna die the next day. So he heard two disturbing news, and he already didn't eat anything. So he just hearing all this news that he was just all shaken up, about to fall down and stuff, about to pass out. And the woman, she is so nice. She just hung around to make sure he was all right. She had to cook food for, to make sure he was all right for him and the men, because he had eaten all day, because he was in distress, and Samuel said, you called me, why you disturb me? He you disturbing the dead because you in distress. So I hope y'all enjoy this story. And remember, you stuck in a situation, that you need guidance. God's the only one can give you guidance, a good guidance. That can help you move forward. He'll give you guidance that will not harm you. But sometimes God don't answer you that day or the next day or next week. And sometimes you might have to just keep on praying. Keep on praying until you stop. Don't never turn to witchcraft. Don't never turn to meaning, because God forbid all that. And he had to, he realized that Saul is trying to speak to Samuel, and Samuel is dead. So God stepped in and took control of the woman that's doing proceeding of witchcraft. He had to get involved to tell Samuel what to tell Saul. So God, a lot of time, God will step in to give a message out to you. So don't never do witchcraft. Sometimes all that witchcraft will backfire on you. That stuff is real and it's very serious and dangerous. So stick to the word, stick to God, and everything will be alright. So y'all have a blessed night, and I'll see y'all on the next video.